And good evening, everyone. How are you guys tonight? It's another Saturday night, and I'm here with somebody. I've got a puppy, and she's on my chair. But for you guys, we come now to the end. Spear of Destiny, Finding Bucephalus. We've reached the end. We have our final two chapters to go tonight. The Spear of Chaos has been destroyed. Everybody has lived. They found the Spear of Destiny and all sorts of good things. And so now we will approach the end as we move in through here. So, as always, if you have not followed along, you have not listened in, you haven't read the book yourself, anything fun like that, you can always stop out at youtube.com/@SirArminius, where I have all of the recorded chapters. Now, a reminder, this is book 2 of the series, which means if you want book 1, well, you're gonna have to go and buy that one to read through it yourself. Might I recommend it? It is a good read. As always, a big thank you to Mary Lou Wells for writing these books. I know she is actively working on book number 3 right now. So, something to consider. You'll definitely want to get through these before book number 3 hits, right? Big thank you as well to editor Kira Holiday. A book does not quite make it to the way that you want it to be without your editor getting involved as well. Again, if you guys have missed any of it, you can stop out and read the previous or listen to the previous chapters on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius. Search Spear of Destiny, and it may pull you to where you want to be here. Oop. That is not what this should be doing. Stupid Discord making noises when I don't want you to be making noises. Streamer mode on. No more noises from Discord. All right, Lena Marlena, hello, hello. Mary Wells, hello to you. And now, one quick housekeeping note before I do get started here tonight. I do record all of these chapters, so I will be happy to converse with you between chapters about everything that's been going on, answer any questions that you may have that I might be able to answer. The author is out and available on the YouTube channel that you can stop out there and say hello to. She will be answering questions all along if you have any of those questions. But because I record, I wait and do it between chapters. Now, wherever you happen to be, sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy. If you happen to be in a hot place, get yourself a nice cold drink. If you happen to be in a cold place, get yourself a hot drink. Grab a blanket, put your feet up, and relax for our enjoyment this evening, as we will dive into Spear of Destiny, Finding Bucephalus by Mary Lou Wells. This is our final reading of this book, which means on Tuesday, we'll be starting a whole new book. Lena Marlena, no worries at all. Hello, hello. Glad to have you here. And now, Let's get ourselves started with 18. The Trial. The surface of the water was dark and smooth like black glass. Lanterns on the edges of the barge cast reflected light off the river's surface and glinted along the damp cavern walls, but the meager light could not reach the craggy ceiling far above them. Charon, the ferryman of the dead, dipped his oars in the river Styx. They heard the faint splash of the boat's movement as if the sound was a quiet plea for mercy when Kibichet approached her trial. Slowly, he conveyed the group toward the opposite shore. "Where are we going?" Issa asked. Her voice echoed into the quiet. "We were called by Ma'at and Ra for Kibichet to be judged by the Council of the Powers," Anubis told Issa. "This means that we will not go to the weighing of the heart, nor go to the high court of heaven to speak with our Father. Instead, we go to a public arena above in the open-air Colosseum, overseen by the lesser powers, our peers. The ladies of justice will oversee the trial, and there will be guests and witnesses. Our Heavenly Father will have a representative there, as he cannot show up in person. That would be problematic for all involved, because his power is so great. It would overwhelm and incinerate the lower court to ashes," Anubis explained. "Issa, you and Haset have also been called rather than simply sent back as of yet, because you are involved," Anubis added. "This is why you were asked to dress for the occasion, and the rules regarding weapons are suspended. Because General Ha-Set cannot surrender the Spear of Destiny at the door, fairness dictates that everyone will be armed." Issa glanced over at Ha-Set. He'd finally given up on objecting to being called by one of his former living use names, and simply rolled his eyes and sighed. Issa smiled at him. He looked resplendent in his combination of formal dress and armor with golden bracers. His bronze and gold khopesh, a gift from her own hand 4,500 years of Earth time in the past, was firmly belted to his side. He carried the Spear of Destiny with an air of authority. He noticed her looking and returned her stare with an impish grin. She looked pretty good, too. Her slender frame was accentuated by white leather breeches and a white draped top held together with golden clasps in the front, so it did not interfere with her wings. One beaded braid of her natural black hair hung to one side as the rest of it fell full and straight. Gold shimmers on her white wings gave off rainbow-colored lights that made her look larger and gave her an imposing presence. She had them tightly folded to stay out of the way of the other occupants of the boat. Kibichet's white, loose-flowing dress was clasped at the shoulders and flowed around her in the slight breeze created by the boat's passage. Silver bracers protected her wrists. Issa stood beside Kibichet, who knelt in a relaxed pose, waiting for what would come. Her silvery double-sided spear balanced across her knees, and her eyes were closed. The boat grounded at a dock made of dark stone. Slippery stone steps shone faintly with dampness as they rose upward. Anubis disembarked first and handed the ferryman something the others couldn't see. "Charon must be paid his dues," Anubis told them solemnly. Ha-Set was next, and reaching into his belt sash, he pulled out a coin. He got out and held his hand out for Issa to help her out of the rocking boat. She spread her wings for balance on the slight waves. Issa pulled a bead from her hair. The illusion vanished when she rolled the bead around in her fingers. It changed, and Issa also handed the ferryman a gold coin. She took the offered hand to allow Ha-Set to help her from the boat, then guide her onto a solid surface with a firm grip. Kibichet took a silver ring from her finger and placed it in the ferryman's hand. "Thank you," she said to him, as she had the many times she had passed this way. She received only a silent nod in return, as always from the old man. She paused and looked upward when she stepped from the boat to the stone dock. The fitted stone path ahead of her led onwards until it split off to the right, leading to another cavern where the hearts of the dead are weighed. However, the path they were to take led uphill. Further ahead, the cavern fell away, allowing sunlight to illuminate their destination. Kibajet brought up the rear. She walked slowly, but with determination. Huge bas-relief bronze doors stood open at the top of a massive set of stone steps. White marble columns surrounded the building in front of them. No roof covered the entrance hall. A large flat area served as a landing pad for flyers to arrive at the other end from where they came in. It was considered rude to land inside when someone had the floor to speak. There were seats of various sizes and large booths in some sections to either side of the amphitheater. When they entered, Issa and Hasset were directed to seats from which they could easily be called to speak. Anubis accompanied Kibajet to Thoth's side, where his magic white feather quill was auto-writing as it recorded events and commentary. Issa's eyebrows rose, and she looked at Kibajet in silent question when the glint of gold on the quill caught her eye. So, that's what she did with it, Issa muttered to herself. Kibajet didn't notice Issa looking at her because she focused on the formal introductions Thoth was giving her. Anubis walked to the middle of the floor and took his place at Ma'at's side, where a large set of scales took pride of place in the center of the room. They waited while several more arrivals entered. The prime deities preceded them. However, representatives of the elder races and elementals from various planes or regions of the multiverse trickled in. Many of these would be concerned with the proceedings' outcome. Kibajet saw several friends and allies, but she noticed some stern or outright angry faces in the seats about her. The seats were nearly full when the Archangel Michael walked in alongside Archangel Azrael and an elder dragon whose box nameplate proclaimed him to be Zakri Inariel. Michael nodded in respect to Kibajet. Instead of walking to their intended seats, both archangels took their place on either side of Hasset, who already shook his head in disapproval at what he witnessed. Whispers of consternation followed when those attending noted the archangel's presence and seating arrangement. It showed clear support for the accused and her companions, a declaration from the highest court. None missed the presence of the spear of destiny held firmly in Hasset's right hand. Therefore, he would stand as representative of mankind in these events. When it was time to begin, Ma'at picked up a bell to call the proceedings to order. The crowd fell silent, waiting for her to speak. I call the ladies of justice forward. They are to with me witness, judge, and execute the orders of this court, Ma'at announced slowly and clearly. Themis, Dyke, Lusticia, join me, please, Ma'at requested formally. When the judges had settled in their place, Ma'at turned to the crowded room to speak the formalities. As you have all heard, we are here to settle the very serious matter of the opening of the abyss by Kibajet, daughter of Anubis, and the resulting escape of many formerly entrapped dark entities. Ma'at's hair shone like a raven's feathers, contrasting with her blood-red sheath dress. All eyes in the room focused on her colorful presence. Ma'at paused to let her words fall upon the ears in the crowd. She continued, You all also know, after the great war that destroyed much of the multiverse, the abyss was formed as a place to home the enemies of the divine order, truth, law, and justice. It was never to be opened until the appointed time, she said. Those who occupied the darkness were never to be prematurely released, because the elder race of dark angels swore when defeated in the last battle that they would return to bestow death and vengeance on all other life. As such, any individual or group who is responsible for opening the abyss, even in this case as with a gate from one place to another, is considered a traitor to all. This is punishable by execution and final death. Ma'at concluded. However, there are mitigating circumstances. To Kibichet's surprise, another strode forward to speak. Ma'at gave the floor to the divine principle of fate. Skuld turned a circle, scanning the crowd. Though any opening of the abyss is a dire affront to cosmic harmony, in this case it was not done maliciously, she said and paused. For the benefit of those who may not know the details, this was done for love and not chaos or violence. The one who opened this portal fought alongside the rest of us in the First Great War and saw her homeland utterly destroyed. She has not since fallen to darkness. She knows the consequences of her actions, does she not? Amaterasu, principle of divine light from Earth's Japan, spoke from the crowd. She stood up so that she could be recognized. Kibichet strode forward to answer for herself. I knew when I went down there that I could very well be giving up my existence for Isa Imdur Reindalen's life. You went in there? Amaratsu's eyes widened. I was not told this detail. Her metallic gold and white silk kimono folded gently around her as she again took her seat. Kibichet shrugged. She didn't have a reply. Yes, and she is not the only one who traveled there and returned, Skuld added. She had to wait for the noise to die down at the revelation before she could continue. A male voice rumbled forth from the crowd. Who is this rare Indalen you speak of? Kibichet pivoted and responded to the new speaker. The Jirkun Ari angel present with us today. She is my sister. Zeus laughed as if through a far-off thunderstorm. You bear no resemblance. Kibichet resisted the urge to bare her fangs. By oaths sworn long ago, by blood spilled together in battle, and by the long dance of eternity, we have become such. I speak no lies. I see. In this, at least, you are being honest. Zeus nodded. Her aura showed no deceit to the powers present. Another challenge came from a beautiful platinum blonde woman who stepped forward. The tilt of her features marked her as a non-human. The silver crown that sat on her brow sparkled with midnight blue star sapphires. She spoke in a musical tone of voice. I saw dark creatures mass at the borders of the realm of the Fae and flood into the earth realm, she said. Long ago we separated ourselves to keep the taint from spilling over into our lands from man's activities. However, our borders do not hold as they once did. The new onslaught seems to coincide with current events, beginning with when Ha-Set crossed the veil and traveled through our borders, the lady stated, glaring at Ha-Set. We hold strong for now, but the Fae people also have an interest in the outcome of this court's decision. She looked at Kibichet and continued. Our traditions have protected us for thousands of turnings. We do not forget with the passage of time the cost of failure to be ever vigilant. Are you going somewhere with this? Skuld asked the speaker. The Queen of the Fae looked at Skuld directly. We care little about how Lady of Cooling Water, the Oracle of Bast, will be punished, even though all of us know she made a grievous error in opening the land of chaos. Our concern is that these incursions will stop, and that such events do not get repeated. Anything else? Skuld asked. No, Lady Fate, the Fae said. Our position stands as stated. She returned to her seat. Another rumbling voice spoke up. With your permission, ladies of the court, the dragon interjected. The floor goes to the representative for the Guardians of the Storms, Ma'at said. Zachary Inariel stepped out into the sunlight, beating down from above, and eyed the sky. Briefly, his scales reflected the light in shades from dark gray to light cream and burgundy. I, too, have been seeing these incursions in the Earth realm, the dragon stated. There are always dark ones hanging about who attempt to subvert the balance held by the elementals. But I am concerned by the numbers I have seen lately. If the realm of man falls, many will fall. Many will follow. We guide where we can in the realms of the younger races. A massive white wolf rose from her bench and approached the floor. Long have I hunted these shadows. They breed prolifically, even as they snarl and snap at each other. Their numbers have been rising steadily these past few turnings. These incursions began long before now. The dragon's head rose proudly above the wolf's as his voice cut across hers. The dread lords are never idle, and their plans have stretched across the ages. This is irrelevant, an angry voice spoke from the crowd. The law is the law. It cannot be broken, and it cannot be disregarded. The dragon's head turned towards the speaker as his neck arched and wings mantled. Why, then, do you speak over us when we have the floor? The dragon asked calmly. Kinich Ahau, the Mayan solar deity, stood from his seat and pointed at Kibachet. We know what the Dread Lords are planning as they constantly plot against us. The point is that we are here to judge that one for her actions. I want to know why and how this was done, so that it may be prevented in the future. He echoed the concerns of the Fae. Zachary lowered his voice to a growling rumble that nevertheless carried across the audience. Judgment cannot be passed without more complete knowledge of the situation. Set would not be the holder of the Spear of Destiny without the consent of the Greater Divine. All of us here hold some knowledge of these events, but only those who were there know the full truth of the matter. Perhaps we should let them speak. Ma'at stepped forward and picked up the scales of justice. Silence spread throughout the amphitheater without the need for any further action. Thank you, Zachary Inariel, for your words. The storm dragon tipped his head forward respectfully to the Lady of Justice and returned to his seat among the elemental delegation. The spirit wolf did likewise and returned to her seat next to Coyote. Ma'at continued. We must not only confirm guilt, but decide Kibachet's fate. To do this, the accused and witness must recount the events for those of us here. Ma'at sat back down, and Dyke, Lady of Justice, stepped forward. In the spirit of mortal order and fair judgment, let Kibachet speak for herself. Come, lady. Kibachet joined Dyke in the center, who spoke to her directly. You will speak of these events as you saw and experienced them, she instructed. Behind you on the wall, where you entered, are the viewing panels. Use these to show us anything which may aid in explaining your actions, or help us to understand what happened. Kibachet nodded and looked over at her companions. Issa looked nervous. Hasset was visibly swelling with anger, but managed to stay his tongue. For now. Michael's calm presence beside him quietly communicated that his chance to be heard would come. Azrael betrayed nothing in his serenely thoughtful countenance. Kibichet smiled at Hasset, but all he managed was a slight feral grimace. 1,000 years ago, Earth time, Kibichet began. Can we get on with it? Hades demanded. I have a demanding schedule. My apologies, Kibichet told him. This is necessary to present a clear narrative. She paused and looked out over the audience. There were quite a few whose faces were closed and auras radiated hostility. However, many were simply intent on her and her words, not yet having passed judgment. Kibichet began again. 1,000 years ago, there arose a psychotic priest of Loki who stole from fate his life thread from the weave and claimed for himself immortality. With a branch from the world tree and the murder of several of his kinsmen, he forged for Loki a great weapon. It was designed to break his chains so that Loki could unleash the second great war upon the realms. Kibichet faced Hades and continued. Set and Issa, along with several others, sent the priest Ulfr to his death. The Spear of Chaos did not die with its maker. It increased in power as it devoured each unwary soul. Demone stole the Spear of Chaos before my sister and her companions could find a way to destroy it. The artifact was then dragged into the abyss on the way to its master. Issa and Hasset were guided to the location of the Spear of Destiny, as only a greater and opposite power could destroy the Spear of Chaos. They pursued the thief through a rift in the abyss. They accomplished their task, though they were grievously wounded in the process. All of this I watched from afar. I received a vision that revealed if they, the Spear of Destiny, and the Archangel's sword were to stay in the abyss, that my sister and Hasset would meet their final deaths, and the artifacts become tools of the Demone, the keys to their freedom and eventual domination, Kibichet told the spectators firmly. Yet, it was my love for my sister that drove me to action, but more than that, it was in defense of all of your realms, your temples, and the multiverse itself. I made my choice, knowing all of the possible consequences, and believed it to be the best course of action that could be taken. I did not have time to stop and analyze my decision. Issa was about to end, and everything would have compounded from there. Kibichet looked up at the amphitheater with her hands extended in supplication. Tears shone at the corners of her eyes and threatened to spill over on her cheeks. Kibichet stepped forward and continued. I ran to the shadowed edges of the moon paths to a ritual space that would help to prevent the spread of taint. From there, I opened the gate to the abyss. I retrieved my sister, her soul bonded, and the artifacts without the Spear of Chaos. That Issa and Hasset did destroy. After a short but intense battle, we emerged. With the help of the archangels Michael and Azrael, we closed the gate. The archangels involved themselves directly in these events? Gaia inquired incredulously. The archangels act only upon the will of the greater divine. Kibichet responded to Gaia's statement. The archangel Michael took his sword back from Hasset as soon as we exited the abyss. The archangel Azrael was able to rescue the lost innocents so they could at last go to their proper place. How did Hasset acquire the archangel's sword in the first place? Such is not for mortal hands, the irate goddess demanded as she glanced at Michael, yet shrank slightly under his answering stare. She deliberately ignored the presence of Azrael, who remained quietly observing. Kibichet responded candidly. I know not the details of that happening, as it was blocked from my vision. Perhaps the Archangel himself felt that his sword would find the best use in Haset's hands for his endeavor. I rather doubt he managed to steal it. One of Haset's hands was over his face as he struggled not to laugh. He shared a glance with Michael, who shook his head and put his finger to his lips. Kibichet continued. Your objection invalidates itself, as Haset is not mortal. Themis interjected loudly over the growing discontent of the crowd. General Haset is not the one on trial. Kibichet's actions and the consequences thereof are the matter at hand. This matter is closed until it is his turn to speak. Gaia subsided back into her seat, looking thoughtful. Well, this is all very fascinating, Hades again interrupted, but we have yet to get to the point. She opened the abyss. What are we going to do about it, and how many demoni escaped? Kibichet acknowledged Hades with a nod. Very businesslike as always, Hades. I know this court will do as it sees fit with me. To answer your second question, probably about 6 Darkborn. Most that escaped were natives of that fell realm. Haset and Issa killed many more in direct battle for the Spear of Chaos. The explosion between the spears and fight afterward. We killed hundreds more and grievously wounded a dreadlord on our way out. I wish to see how this was done. Dreadlords do not go down easily, Hades told her. I am at the moment undecided. Where would you like to begin the viewing of events, as seen through my memories? Kibichet asked him. Begin with how you carved your way into the abyss, he demanded, as he leaned back in his seat, somewhat intrigued now. It will be as you wish, Kibichet answered. She turned and placed her hand upon the first of 6 viewing panels. The scene unfolded in brilliant color across the massive stone surface between 2 columns positioned so that all present could see. The audience winced as the fabric of the world was rent apart before their eyes. They watched as the gate yawned wide and swallowed Kibichet whole, the desperate free fall downwards through the darkness, and the hopeless position in which she found Issa. Wing broken and throat torn and bloodied, still Issa battled the Urgermach back to back with Haset, even as she weakened. Some viewers jumped, and some who had more recently fought growled as another attacking daemon sprung through the flames. They watched Kibichet spear it, then fling it back into the milling horde. Many cheered as Haset wielded angel fire to kill everything within reach of the Archangel's sword, held their breath at the treacherous climb upwards, attempting to beat the closure of the portal while being set upon from all sides by shadow drakes. When the memory reached the Dreadlord's attack, it played in slow motion as Kibichet had perceived it. Most of the audience came to their feet when the Dreadlord's attack hit Kibichet in the center of her chest. Rather than go down, she quickly pulled herself together and returned the attack, catching the Dreadlord in dragon fire. By the time Haset also hit the winged Black Lord with angel fire, all were on their feet, cheering. Hades stood with the rest and watched with intent fascination through the final battle. The trio fought alongside the Archangel, who neatly claimed his sword from Haset as they emerged. Hades saw them kill many of the escaping Darkborn and watched their struggle to seal the gate. In the cold silence of the aftermath, the life spark of a tiny child cradled lovingly in Archangel Azrael's gentle hand was the last thing they saw before the panel went blank. I stand with Kibichet, Hades said into the quiet, and then sat down. Anubis smiled as he mentally began tallying the support versus those who still appeared unmoved by the emotional content of what they'd just witnessed. By his reckoning, his daughter had won over 2/3 of the council. There is still one who is absent, Anubis thought to himself as he observed the empty seat beside Sekhmet, and his grin widened. He shook his head knowingly. His sister would make her appearance at the moment of maximum drama, just like a cat to pounce when it's least expected.
I do not,
Another female voice chimed in the quiet.
I believe the only just punishment for opening the abyss is the final death. That is our law. She knew before she did this action that the consequences would be dire.
Everyone looked around to see that Athena was speaking. I also knew the consequences for doing nothing would be extreme for everyone, not just myself, Kibachet reiterated. She faced Athena squarely. What would you have me do? Just leave them down there and allow the Archangel's sword and the Spear of Destiny to fall into the hands of evil?
Yes,
Athena glared at her.
and because you release the Darkborn from the eternal trap, you must die. Your power should never be abused in such a manner, Kibachet. You are one of the powers that keep the balance, and you know better. Now, Athena, let's not be hasty.
A giant spider purred in a gravelly voice as she slipped into the floor to stand with Kibachet.
Arachnia,
Athena said with disgust.
You would disagree with me just on principle.
Of course, Arachnia answered.
But does that invalidate my opinion and my, shall we say, situation is proof that your views can sometimes be extreme?
Through the trial, Hasset sat quietly listening, watching and analyzing. When he saw the discussion devolve into petty politics, he could stand it no longer. Beside him, the archangels felt the force of Hasset's anger, so both expected it when he finally exploded out of his chair. Kenneth stood and slammed the butt end of the Spear of Destiny on the floor, sending a shock wave throughout the whole amphitheater. Y'all are a bunch of pussies blaming her. Kenneth pointed the Spear of Destiny at Kibachet as he shouted while the reverberations from the impact died down. Kibachet groaned and draped her wrist over her eyes. Now this is where it gets ugly. Kibachet remembered well Hasset's temper and dislike for politics from her time with him in Egypt. Issa gasped from her seat in consternation. She glanced around at the shocked faces in the audience and waited for the sky to drop on him. At least you had the balls to do something while the rest of y'all just sat there, Hasset continued, glaring accusingly at the masked powers before him. You judge her for making a mistake. But what about all those other mistakes and failures that led us to have to be here? Ma'at gave Hasset a stern look. Skuld remained expressionless, as she also knew Hasset's tendencies. Ma'at was the one who spoke. The floor goes to General Hasset, she declared. We will hear from a witness. Kenneth strode forward, holding the Spear of Destiny high to make a point as Arachnia returned to her seat. This, if you had been doing your jobs, would not be in my hand. Immortality of the flesh? How did I get that? It wasn't by choice. That was an accident that could have been prevented, as normally fruit from the world tree isn't left lying about. Neither was Issa given a choice when she carried me into the abyss. I agreed to sign on to this mission, but she could not give consent for facing the death that nearly took her. So what choice did Kibachet have but go into the abyss to get her? The mistake was made hundreds of years ago, and since you, the powers, are all about balance, why only now are you choosing to act a balance which you allowed to be out of balance in the first place? He demanded. Are you righting a wrong, or are you just looking for a scapegoat? Are you claiming to be blameless? A stocky god wearing a cloak of azure blue demanded. His red beard bristled.
No, I am not. Hasset turned to face him. Who are you?
I am Aegir, the god replied.
Okay, let's examine this.
Hasset was not in the mood to back down.
Norse god of the sea. You had the opportunity to stop this nonsense by dragging the ships under as soon as Ulfr set sail from Norway, he pointed out. For myself? Mistake? Well, in hindsight, throwing the Spear of Chaos into a volcano wasn't the brightest idea. On the other hand, it could have been much bigger boom if Mount St. Helens had waited to blow.
He grinned slightly.
In the crowd, only a few noticed Pele, the Hawaiian volcano guardian, nodding and grinning in agreement. It had given her a moment of surprise, but she always appreciated a good explosion. She hadn't even been in a bad mood that day. Hasset continued. By the time Kibachet acted, the balance and laws you all hold so dear had already been broken. It should not have fallen to her. It is not her pantheon. She wasn't even involved in the whole Ulfr mess. The only reason she got involved was because of Issa, who was not in the abyss of her own free will. Who, then, if not Kibachet, was going to go down there to get her? Or were you going to let an innocent rot down there?
Aegir turned to Issa.
Did you give formal informed consent to enter the halls of the bottomless pit?
Issa answered so that all could hear.
I did not. I could not speak, nor write or sign. I had agreed to shift my form to that of Bucephalus and pursue the Spear of Destiny. Thereafter, even when we acquired the Spear of Destiny, I went where Hasset bade me out of trust.
Aegir sat back, thoughtful.
By our laws, that does not equate consent.
Hasset turned and remarked to Kibachet.
You see, they don't even have all the facts. How could they presume to try you?
You insolent mortal!
A lightning bolt whizzed from the area where Zeus sat.
How dare you question the council in this manner?
Hasset didn't move to avoid the attack, but Issa jumped quicker than the lightning bolt and caught it sizzling across her mantled wings as she shielded him and grounded the lightning. Thunder shook the amphitheater with a deafening crack.
You will not use your weapons!
The ladies of justice shouted in unison. The rest of what they had to say was lost in the roar of white water as Aegir tossed a wave of seawater at Zeus.
I was talking!
Aegir shouted at Zeus. Only he got everyone else on that side of the amphitheater wet also. The only one who looked happy about that was Zakri Inariel. The storm dragon spread his wings, enjoying the water cascading down his wings. Pele, who was sitting just behind the dragon and was thoroughly soaked, angrily threw magma at the god of the North Sea. Hearing the sizzle behind him as water evaporated in the heat of Pele's anger, the dragon ducked, nonplussed at the return volley. Hasset merely stood shaking his head, with Issa standing beside him. Her dander was up too, and it showed as all her feathers were on end, expressing her anger. Her wings extended to their full 20-foot length as she interposed herself between the angry gods and Hasset, who was attempting to push her out of the way so he could see. Would y'all get out of the way? They're trying to squish you, Issa bit out through gritted teeth. I can take care of myself. Now move, Hasset said with frustration. Kibachet was torn between laughter and mortification at the behavior of her fellow deities. Watching the situation above rapidly devolve into a brawl, she took out her spear, planted it on the floor, and formed a protective silver dome over all three of them. It took shape just in time as rocks formed from the clash between lava and seawater rained down on top of them. Kibachet remarked in a low tone to Issa and Hasset. At least I got dinner and a show before my sentence gets carried out. Hasset started laughing, despite himself. Issa began to calm with their temporary safety. She grumbled as she folded her wings down tightly.
I fail to see anything amusing. Yet more rocks and other less identifiable debris impacted the shield. They've all lost their marbles, she added. Which is what's funny, Kibachet giggled. They're trampling over more laws than I have. Exactly, Hassett agreed. They just proved my point, he said, his voice tinged with disgust. Just at that moment, the door slammed open with a crash that reverberated through the entire building. The fight ended abruptly. Everyone turned to watch the new arrival. A giant black panther strolled nonchalantly through the doors and took her slow, sweet time to boldly make her way to the floor. Kibachet dropped the shield as the cat approached. She bowed her head in respect as her friend and mentor came near. Anubis, who had been waiting for this moment, backed up and waited for his sister to have her say. Right on time as always, Anubis grinned toothily. Lady Basset, you are acknowledged, Ma'at said gratefully into the silence won by the entrance of the mother of cats.
And what makes some of you think I will allow my priestess to face the final death at your hands?
She purred loudly enough for all to hear.
For this, you will answer to me. Kibachet, take your seat,
Bastet ordered. Kibachet moved to do her lady's bidding. Bastet strolled to Issa and ran her head under her hand.
Issa, you too, the goddess said. Hassett will be fine.
Issa hugged Bastet around her neck and nearly having to tiptoe due to the cat's size, and then scampered to her seat. Bastet faced Hassett.
You look well, General, she purred.
Much better than the last I saw you. She paced around him, making Hassett feel rather glad not to be a mouse. Lady Bast, he acknowledged. He privately wondered what her angle was. He found himself having mixed feelings. Somewhere inside him he found anger simmered, and he paused briefly to wonder at it, but shoved the emotion away as unimportant at present. He also somehow found comfort in her presence. They have proved my point, he told her.
Yes, they have,
Bastet agreed.
Don't leave just yet. You are not finished.
She turned to address the amphitheater, pacing around the edge of the floor as she spoke.
Our body of laws also dictates that none may interfere with the actions or destinies of another power's avatars, priests, or priestesses,
Bast said.
Kibachet is not only the daughter of Anubis, named the Lady of Cool Water, but she is also Ka-Ali, sworn high priestess and my prime oracle. Thus, while I agree this court has the right to question recent events, it does not have the right to pass sentence without my approval. There is another complication with your plans to end my priestess,
Bastet told the assembled powers.
She is tied by love and by an unbreakable promise to the destinies of these two. Until that promise gets fulfilled in its proper time, she may not deviate from her path. This proceeding comes dangerously close to interfering in that proper time.
But Kibachet must be punished. Athena was still unmoved. And what would you accomplish by that? Hosset growled. So she did it. She doesn't claim otherwise. But shouldn't you be focusing on the future and not the past? And you are not counting the fact that we killed more of the demons than we let out. So how do we keep this kind of score? He waved at all of them in disgust. The whole thing is a farce.
Easy, General,
Bast purred softly to Hosset alone.
Well, I appreciate your support of Ka Ali and your willingness to fight for her fate, even as you hold the Spear of Destiny.
The cat goddess sounded amused.
We should avoid provoking hot tempers. Remember, you cannot lose while you hold the full authority granted to you as its bearer. You need not fear. The moment you stepped onto the floor, this battle was over.
Lords and ladies of the court, Lady Bast. A deep female voice rang out over their heads. May I interject? Bastet looked over to the speaker.
Go on.
Freya stepped forward, holding her naked sword in her hand, pommel up. Perhaps I can propose an alternative that would be acceptable to all.
And that is?
Bastet asked her calmly. It is true that I hold enmity for Loki and his dire plans. In that alone, I would stand with any who thwart him, Freya began. But it seems to me that we have a larger concern than mere punishment. As General Hosset has pointed out, punishment does not solve the problem of the escaped demoni. But what it would do is prevent further action by one who is, as we have seen, adequately equipped to successfully take them on and win. I have fought dreadlords, and I, too, know they do not go down easily. Killing Kibachet would be wasteful, shall we say, to those here who are practical.
Can we get to the point?
Hades was again bored with the entire lengthy proceeding. His own foresight showed him how this would end. He wished they'd just get on with it. Freya eyed Hades, but she was unwilling to start another brawl and cut short her speech. Put Kibachet where she will do the most good. Have her fix what she broke. Send her to Midgard in mortal skin to hunt demoni there unhindered. If her path is already tied to these two, who must return to earth, send her to be with them. The Jirkun Ari class angel is herself hiding in human skin. Isa, in this case, Mary Lou, is of the appropriate age to be the proper vessel, and she is strong enough to bear a demigod without it killing her. Anubis can oversee these matters, as it is his daughter he will send back through the veil. Isa looked up sharply. Wait, whoa, what? It is simple. Love triumphs all else, Freya declared. That is the greatest law of the greater divine. I, for one, will not take on the karma of disrupting the natural course of true love and soul bonds, whether they are or are not romantic in nature and fulfillment. Never in the history of the multiverse has that action ended well, Freya pointed out. I stand for Kibachet, she finished simply, and returned to her seat. Isa stared after the goddess open-mouthed. Do I have anything to say about this?
Of course you do,
Bastet said before she was interrupted by a sharp cry from Kibachet.
No,
Kibachet objected. Never again. Her talons bit into her palms, spilling bright blood on the floor. I have been too many times, and it often takes centuries for me to put myself back together again. Let me hunt as I am. I don't care how long it takes, just don't send me back. Anubis stepped from his place and laid his hand on Kibichet's shoulder. With her father's presence at her side, she quieted and attempted to restrain the wild energies flaring around her. Kibichet speaks truly. Seldom has she returned to us having died a peaceful death, Anubis spoke sadly. To die a warrior's death is a great honor. Have you lost your courage? Tyr, from the Norse pantheon, challenged from his seat. Kibichet laughed, a hollow sound that echoed with despair. No, I faced the abyss without flinching, but to be stripped of power, of memory, and sent to the non-existent mercies of man absolutely terrifies me. Very rarely am I given the warrior's death in battle, or allowed to live my natural span as it should be. Brought down by treachery, bound and tormented for days or weeks. That is the fate that has awaited me there. Freya stood from her seat once again. In the spirit of fairness, show us. Naturally, we should have all the facts before proceeding. Kibichet's hand shook as she threw her memories to the viewing panels for all to see. This was my most recent incarnation. The bright gold of tall grasses stretched as far as the eye could see. Stalking forward, her golden coat and black spots blended in well. The cheetah slipped between the dry stalks, her eyes on an antelope. The rumble of a truck shook the ground beneath her paws. She paused, slinking lower to the ground. The foreign sound of laughter touched her ears, and the truck changed course. She was seen. I had cubs at the time, Kibichet interjected at this point, her voice tight so that it wouldn't shake. I didn't live long enough to get back to them. She waited until she was certain they were headed towards her before she moved. Springing out of cover, she pushed her body as far and as fast as she could. It wasn't enough. Already in motion, the truck paced her yard for yard. A loud sound, sharper than thunder, pierced the air. She changed direction, desperate to get away, and returned to her little ones. Another shot rang out, and she felt pain and heat pierce her shoulder, the bone there splintering. Her right foreleg gave way beneath her. Yowling in pain, she stumbled. The world spun out of control as she speed dove her into the ground again and again. She felt something in her hip crack as she struck a rock and lay still. There was more laughter as the men stopped their truck and got out. Panting and unable to move, she waited for them to give the killing blow. It was not quick as she had hoped. They kicked and beat her as she lay there, unable to respond until she could no longer see, and her spirit finally slipped free of her form. As the memory concluded, Kibichet spoke again. I would have understood if they hunted me for food, or if I had been taking animals from farms. I understood the defense of territory and the need for meat. But no, they only wanted my head and my pelt. The rest they left for the hyenas. Growling set up in the crowd. Wolf and Coyote's eyes gleamed with anger. Yamaya, the African goddess of fertility and childbirth, was also enraged. How dare they? Kibichet, I am sorry. Hasset spoke quietly. Most men have been taught by other men that animals do not have souls as we do. That was supposed to be a vacation, Kibichet exclaimed and rounded on Hasset. He winced at her next words. They simply killed me in cold blood. She sobbed, heartbroken with tears falling down her face. The time before that was even worse. This time she slammed her hand on the panel hard, and the scene changed. That time I was human. Did I have a soul then? Kibichet demanded. A couple of years after Joan of Arc was murdered, it was about the year 1433 by their calendar. The horrors I witnessed during the preceding 5 years led me to decide I had to do something. I was helping women and children in France and Spain escape the birth of the Inquisition as it tore across the continent. From the French Valais area in what is now Geneva, Switzerland, that holds the dread Lord Temple of Apollyon, the Inquisition spread much like the Black Death. It was an evil plague of fear, suspicion, and torture. I saved as many innocents as I could during the spreading hysteria, but it was not enough. I had a large house and grounds in Toulouse, France, near the border with Spain, containing an easily concealed space beneath the basement. Someone, one of my friends, I think, betrayed me to the church. The scene unfolded on the stone to reveal a dungeon. Torches blazed on the walls. With her hair shorn and burned up and down her bare arms, a woman lay strapped to a tabletop in a vertical position. Iron bands secured her arms and ankles with a nether across her throat. Blood dripped down the wood at her back and pooled beneath. A man sat in front of her at a desk. He wore an embroidered tan vest and a poofy white-sleeved shirt over breeches. His hair was cut to neck length and slicked back with oil. A large ledger sat open in front of him, and he held a quill in his hand. "All you have to do is confess, and this will be over within short order," the man said. He remained expressionless, almost clinical in his demeanor. Defiant, the woman in front of him merely bared her teeth and hissed at him. "If the hells you speak of exist, I am quite sure that you and yours will burn in it." The man turned to the guard behind him. "Again, make sure they do a better job of it this time." After she was taken away, the scene dissolved into incoherent impressions of screaming and blood. The only clear point came when a man held a burning torch to the left side of her face. He remarked offhandedly to the man guarding the door, "Witches aren't supposed to be pretty. We need to mark her up a bit more to give the crowd a good show." I had no way to know how long I was trapped down there. I remember pleading, "Oh God, let it end." They did not break me or make me confess to whatever it was they made up for charges so they could take my land for themselves. They would have tortured me longer, I think, but infection was setting in, and fever would have taken me. The scene shifted again. The woman stood chained in a cart carried by 2 guards and paraded through the streets until they reached the center of the town square. A wooden platform was set up with wood and oil ready for her execution. They tied her to a stake on the platform and set the wood beneath her on fire. I was incoherent with fever by then. All I knew was these people hated me. There was no real explanation. I was left with only fear, pain, and death, Kibachet said. Kibachet turned around to face the crowded amphitheater again and allowed the memory to envelop her form. She stood before them with her back shredded by the cat o' nine tails, a ragged tunic hanging from her body half torn away. Bone showed through the burns on her face, and bruises covered her body. Kibachet's fingernails and toenails were ripped away. They watched as she closed her eyes and the scene played out on the panel behind her. Her body blackened as the fire consumed her. As soon as the memory ended, Kibachet shook off the imprint of that past life on her physical soul body. She stood shaking in reaction, unable to speak as the trauma was too fresh in her mind. "Kibachet." A gentle but firm voice spoke to her. The archangel Azrael went to her and took her hand. "That was not the will of our Lord God Elohim. Our Heavenly Father does not condone such actions," he assured her. His face was a mask of anger. The assembly was silent for several moments, and then the noise swelled. The archangel stayed by Kibachet's side until the yelling in the amphitheater began to quiet. Kibachet said nothing further. She simply nodded, and took comfort in the archangel's warm aura. Isa had watched the scenes play out in horror and found herself crying. Kibachet hadn't told her most of what had been shown. She looked at Hasset, who looked back at her and shrugged helplessly. The rage she found burning inside him at the dishonor to the greater divine had no outlet. Isa rose from her seat. "I can guarantee few things," she began as she addressed the ladies of justice. "But what I can do, I will." She paused. "My own life on earth hasn't been without its trauma to me. My right to self-determination has already been taken from me by rape and neglect, and it is difficult to suffer a man's touch or trust enough to do this. But if you send her back while I am alive, I will do whatever is necessary to protect her where she finds her feet again. I will raise her to know the principles and powers so that she can freely use her gifts to better the world. When she's of age, and the Leith no longer clouds her memories and her gifts, we will hunt together." "I, too, will do what I can," Hasset interjected. Bast nodded in approval.
"It will be well," she said. "However, Hasset, your path must diverge for a time, so that you can best use your own gifts. You can take comfort in knowing all of you will be watched over and guided when possible. For now, we must await judgment."
Freya also spoke to the ladies of justice from her seat. "Well, I understand Kibachet's trepidation. Many of our number even now live their lives with the younger race of man. Mankind as a whole must awaken, and they need their spirituality gifted, particularly at the turning of the ages when progress may arise out of turmoil. I believe this to be the best course of action given the circumstances presented to us. Midgard is at the next turning of the age, and those before us are well equipped to help shape the course of events," Freya continued. "In addition to this, Kibachet must learn to understand what happened to her, and she must find a way to forgive before she is whole. When she is ready to hunt, may she do so successfully," Freya concluded. "Lady Bast," Ma'at addressed her directly, will you, accept a term of your priestess in the Earth Realm under the watchful eye of the Jir-Kun Ari? It is this, or it is execution to the final death of personality by our laws for the crime of releasing Demoni from the abyss."
"I approve of sending her to the Earth Realm for a full life term,"
Bast acknowledged as she looked deep into Kibachet's frightened eyes. "Does anyone object?" Ma'at asked those crowding the amphitheater in her full guise as principal of justice. Athena sniffed, but stayed any further objections. The rest simply awaited pronouncement, as they knew it was practically settled. "Themis, Dyke, Justicia," Ma'at called the other judges forward. "It is time for the decision of this court." Themis came forward and placed her hand on Kibachet's shoulder. "By official proclamation, in the custom of the principle of divine order and law, the merciful and unanimous decision of this court is to stay the execution of Kibachet. She will be banished to the Earth Realm to spend a term of life there as a mortal. There she will use her gifts in defense of the realms and for the benefit of mankind. Anubis and Bast are to oversee this is done in a right and proper manner in time, so that she has self-determination and is in full possession of herself. May our divine Creator's blessings go with her." "If that is the will of this court and my Lady Bastet, then I will cede to it," Kibichet formally acknowledged her sentence. At the end of the proceedings, Ma'at rang the bell once Themis returned to her seat. "This court is closed." Scold, displaced from Kibichet's side by Bastet's arrival, pushed through the crowd of well-wishers to speak with her. "You made many allies here today, all three of you. You all displayed uncommon courage in the face of terrible odds. Regardless of her contrary comments, Athena too is impressed." "It didn't sound like she was impressed. Sounded like she was pissed," Hasset observed. "Ah, but Athena was doing her job to provide a counter-argument. Athena loves brave warriors in any age, Kenneth," Scold smiled. "She will be watching you when you step into future battles." "Oh, you mean somebody remembers my name?" Hasset grumbled. "We all do," Scold told him. "But Kibichet remembers you from your last contact in the mortal realm. Using your Egyptian name minimizes confusion while you accompany Kibichet and Issa this side of the veil." Kibichet added, "Like the rest, it's a use name and not your true name anyway, General Hasset," she teased. He reached over and ruffled Kibichet's hair, not in the mood to argue since they'd just won a much bigger argument. "Okay, whatever," he said. "Auntie Sculdy? What happens next?" Kibichet asked Fate. "Ah, that would be telling." Scold fondly winked at her. "But I imagine you will all want to return to the temple to regroup and plan your next moves." "Do we need to go back across the river to get back? I want to go home," Issa said. "I'd like to rest for a while and go flying before I have to give up my wings again." She looked longingly at the sky. "I feel like a caged bird." "Home to our family sounds good," Hasset remarked. "Peace and quiet would be even better." "That's not what I meant," Issa said. "But I imagine I'll have to go back there sooner rather than later." "We don't have to cross the river Styx now. That is the only way to get here, but we can open a gate to leave. We just can't do it in here. We have to do it outside." Kibichet answered Issa's question. "If a defendant could open a gate inside the court, that would be problematic, don't you think?" "I can see that," Issa replied. Thoth moved through the crowd and nodded acknowledgment to them in passing. His magic quill was auto-writing in a Akashic record book. Hasset watched him walk by and had a sudden inspiration. "Hold on a moment, you guys." He hurried up to Thoth. "Thoth?" Hasset managed to catch up with him. "Can you teach me to do that?" He pointed at the quill and looked closer. "Hey, is that—"
"One of your soul-bonded's feathers? Yes, young man, it is,"
Thoth answered Hasset's quizzical expression in as dignified a manner as he could muster. For a moment he was speechless, staring at. "Okay, then." He struggled with the sudden mental image of Issa molting and dancing feathers. It made him almost forget what he was about to say. He shook his head, declared, "What I meant is, yeah. Can you teach me a scribe spell?" he finally managed to ask.
"You could always write things down yourself instead of relying on a spell,"
Thoth told him. Because Hasset still held the Spear of Destiny, Thoth could not read his true intent. "I don't want to write on paper," Hasset assured the keeper of Akashic records. "I want to engrave something so that I can hide it in plain sight."
"I see,"
Thoth replied. He looked at the team with his head tilted to examine him with one bird's eye.
"I think you will find that Kibichet can help you with what you desire. She has learned much over time, though she does not always use her knowledge wisely."
"Thanks," he told Thoth and hurried away. Once the crowd had thinned, Hasset managed to pull Kibichet aside. "Can you teach me a scribe spell?" "You really need to be more specific than that. There's a lot of different scribe spells," Kibichet told him. I want to engrave something, Hasset said. Something hard. Sure. Just don't write on Daddy's temple walls. He'd get mad. Hasset smiled at her with amused suspicion. There's a story there, isn't there? Well, there may have been more than a few bottles of shadow flower wine and a limerick or two involved, Kibichet admitted, giggling and only slightly embarrassed. So, getting back on track, is it metal, crystal, stone, wood, or bone? Wood, Hasset said, bumping the spear against the ground for emphasis. Ah, okay, Kibichet said suspiciously, and then shrugged. Should be fine as long as it doesn't blow you up. Again? So, does that mean yes? Hasset's eyes had a mischievous twinkle. Meet me in the temple gardens. We'll want to practice on a few sticks, Kibichet told him. Late evening found Isa again riding the air currents over to the summerland. She sighed with content as she sped over the landscape in a long glide toward the temple. Isa knew her companions were in the gardens. She flew around the grounds until she found them with heads bent together beside one of the gazing pools. What are you guys doing? Isa asked curiously. Kibichet took a stick from the ground and waved it above her head. We're writing on sticks. See? She sounded unusually chipper. I see that. Isa stared hard at Kibichet. You sound unusually... You usually sound that happy only when you're up to something. Me? Do something? Not this time. Kibichet grinned at her. I'm innocent. Yeah, okay, whatever, Hasset snickered. Kibichet pouted at him playfully. You have no faith in me. I have absolute faith that you will be into something at all times, Isa told her. She plopped down on the stone edge of the pool. Hasset looked sideways at Kibichet. She's just upset she doesn't have sticks. Isa snatched a stick up. Ha! Now I have the stick, she proclaimed. She pointed at them playfully like she was holding a sword. Yeah, but can you ride on it? Hasset laughed. Sure. Hand me a pen. Isa giggled and waved it around some more. Kibichet grabbed Isa's stick as it whizzed past her nose. Hey, that's my stick, Isa objected. It was my stick first. I wrote on it, Kibichet exclaimed. Fine, I'll get another stick. Isa let go and grabbed the other one from under her soul sister. I wrote on that one, too. The sticks clacked together as Isa and Kibichet squared off. Hasset, not wanting to be left out of the fun, grabbed 2 sticks and started a free-for-all with both of them. Anubis didn't have a hard time finding them. He simply followed the sound of laughter and clacking sounds. He smiled when he rounded the corner and saw them having fun. The change was a huge relief from watching these 3 fight for their lives. He hated interrupting, so he simply sat down until they noticed him. Hello, Father. Kibichet backed up, going still and quiet. Anubis addressed them. It will soon be time for Isa and Hasset to return to the Earth Realm. Hasset has a promise to keep. We will discuss the choices available to you from here upon your return. He turned to Kibichet. Bring me the lethe, if you would. 2 cups will be needed for after the matter of the Spear of Destiny is handled. Kibichet dipped her head in a formal acknowledgment. Ahi, my Lord Father. Kibichet turned to go, and Isa placed a hand on her shoulder to stop her. First, I have a question. What do you want your name to be in the mortal realm this time? Isa asked her. Kibichet paused for a moment, thinking. The matter of a name was a serious one, even if it was only to be used for a single lifetime. I think that Kira would be appropriate for this day and age. Kira sounds pretty.
I like it.
Issa responded. Kibachet smiled back at Issa somewhat sadly, placing her hand on Issa's, where it rested on her shoulder. Thank you. It is a rare thing to have the privilege of choosing my name. She turned away to do Anubis's bidding. Come, you two, if you are ready, Anubis asked them. Yes, I am definitely ready to go. Hasset grinned real big. Issa merely nodded, but looked at Hasset quizzically, wondering at his enthusiasm. Where do you wish to be sent? Anubis requested Hasset's formal declaration. The Vatican, Hasset replied, still grinning. I'm going to put it where nobody will find it. Anubis reached out to the arch over the entrance to the garden and slid his talons between Summer and the Earth realm, creating a bridge between the 2 points. This portal will stay open until you return, Anubis assured them. You are still on this side of the veil. When it finds itself in its resting place, the Spear of Destiny will return to the physical plane. That works for me, Hasset nodded in satisfaction. Come on, let's get this over with. Right behind you, Issa assured him. So, where exactly are we going? She asked, after they stepped through the gate. There, he pointed. Whoa, this place is huge, Issa exclaimed with a gasp. They walked through Vatican Square and entered the Vatican Archives building. A set of spiral stairs led to several areas that contained numerous shelves of old hand-copied books, glass cases, and museum-quality artifacts. They searched each room systematically. Eventually, they came across a glass case holding a spear that looked much like the one Hasset held in his hand. Bingo, Issa said. I think we found it. Yep, Hasset agreed. The cover was stuck tight when he tried the case. Just a minute while I get this loose, he said. Finally, the stubborn clasp released, and he lifted the replica out of its case. Hasset was about to lower the Spear of Destiny in place of the fake when Issa suddenly grabbed Hasset's arm. What do you think you're doing? She demanded. Where in all the levels of hell is the real one? What do you mean? He asked her with as innocent an expression as he could manage. What the fuck? Don't act all innocent with me. Look right there. Made in China. She pointed out the words that appeared burned into the shaft of the Spear of Destiny. This is the real one, he told her, and ducked as she took a swing at him. You better damn well explain yourself. I will go over your head if I have to, Issa threatened. I'll tell the Archangel you switched it. She glared at him and crossed her arms. Hasset looked at her angry expression, and suddenly his trick didn't seem so funny. But, he thought to himself, if it's good enough to fool her, this is going to work. I'm sure the Archangel knows exactly what I'm doing. Besides, do you remember in the garden where we were writing on sticks? Hasset asked her. Yeah, what's your point? Issa's eyes narrowed. Her expression cleared as she got it. Oh, you mean that's what you were trying to do? Yes, he shrugged. You could trust me better than that, you know. That's sacrilege, Issa objected. It's a Roman spear. It will be okay. It's not like it is God himself. The engraving will keep anybody from trying to use it for evil purposes, Hasset told her. They will think this is the fake. You wrote on the Spear of Destiny. Issa threw up her hands. Well, go on then. Put it there so we can go. Inscribed, Hasset said as he did what she told him. If it is good enough to fool you, then this is the best way to hide it. Now what to do with the actual fake? Put it back where we got the real one? Issa suggested. Nah, no reason to bother with that. Maybe I'll just throw the fake spear in the river. When Hasset closed the case, it took on the quality and appearance of an odd overlay to their eyes. It merged back into the physical plane of reality, just as Anubis had said it would. There. That is, as they say, that. Hasset dusted off his hands and picked up the fake Spear of Destiny, and they turned to leave. Well, that was a long chapter. We have one left to go, everybody. Are you ready? So let's see. It was actually pronounced, where was it? Scroll back up, scroll back up. Pronounced Esau Emder Rian Esau Emder Re Indalin. Yeah, I definitely didn't pronounce that right. It's an old Kemet language, ancient Egyptian. I do the best I can, ladies and gentlemen. We get what we get, right? I think we only had to say that one once, so I didn't have to say it wrong twice. All right, guys, let's check really quick, make sure we're not missing any comments from anybody. No, we're good. No, we're good. Like a TV. Yep, that's exactly what those things sounded like to me. TVs. We're good, and we are good. All right. Yeah, it's what happens when you're streaming across to 6 different platforms, I think, right now. Thank you all for being here, whatever platform you happen to be on. Indalin. Indalin. Indaling. Thank you very much, Mary Lou Wells. She keeps me on the straight and narrow with pronunciations as we go along. We get what we get. All right. Again, it's one of the joys of reading live sometimes is I do the best I can. If I was actually recording these in an audiobook, she and I would have sat down, we would have had a whole pronunciation guide. I would have practiced these things multiple times before I get to these words. Live reading, you get what you get. All right, guys. Time for our final chapter. Yes. I hope you are all enjoying the story, wherever you happen to be, everyone. I hope you are enjoying the story. Remember, if you have questions, comments, anything else, please feel free to put them down. If you've made it through this entire book with me, make sure you stop out and give a review for the book. Over the course of the next week or so, I will get a review written up from my perspective. I always put a disclaimer in there saying that I did do this as a live leading. Yes, I have the good words. As a live reading. And then I always give my fair and unbiased opinion in here because honestly, that's the best thing that you can do for an author, especially a smaller author, is review their work, give an honest assessment, and you'll let them know what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, what you thought could have changed. As you go through it, it makes a huge difference to indie authors, smaller authors, authors as a whole, but definitely your smaller authors. It's very useful to all of them to have those reviews. So if you've made it all this way through with me, please make sure that you go out there to Amazon, Goodreads. I assume it's on Goodreads because if it's on Amazon owns Goodreads. It's probably in both. Go out there and put up the reviews. In the next week, you will see that I will put one out for this as well. A fair and unbiased review. Now, I will also say that I pretty much never give 1s and 5s. I, for the most part, stick in 2s, 3s, and 4s because there's always something to improve, and there's always something good and redeeming about a story. So it's pretty rare that I would give something a 1 unless it was just nearly incoherent. And a 5, again, very rare because with any story, a 5 should be, almost beyond what you would expect. Most reviews should fall into twos, threes, and fours. I would give something different, fours and a halves and one and a halves maybe if there were half stars available, but there's not. All right, guys. With that said, let's get into our last chapter. 19. Leith. Kibachet stood holding two large, long-stemmed goblets upon returning to the temple garden. Each cup was made of carved gray stone and covered in raised images of gods and man. The goblets were full nearly to the rim with the water of forgetting from the river Leith. Anubis took one of the goblets and beckoned Hasset to walk with him. They left Kibachet and Issa alone in the garden. I would say that I'm going to miss you, but I suppose that doesn't apply since I won't remember much, Issa said to Kibachet. The two walked past a gazing pool into the most private section of the garden. Flowers hung heavy above their heads, filling the pure air with a sweet fragrance. Issa drew in a deep breath, savoring the delicious scents. The soul always remembers, even when the mind doesn't, Kibachet replied. She stared down into the stoneware cup at the silver Leith water. You just don't know who you are missing. Another empty place in my life. I guess I don't have enough of those. Issa wrinkled her nose. The flowers were giving her the urge to sneeze. My family doesn't support me in much of anything, and I have to go back, look over my shoulder constantly, and be put down all the time. It's trying, to say the least. Kibachet hissed slowly, a sound like steam rising off a hot metal. Friends are the family you choose. I've always been there for you, even if I can't do much from here. Please, my sister, listen not to the opinions of idiots. Issa nodded. I try, but it's constant. Being a sensitive in the realm of mankind is stressful enough. It's hard not to withdraw when everyone around me just seems to hate me. I don't understand it. I reach out with love, and either they seem to think I've got an ulterior motive, or they attack where they think I'm most vulnerable. I understand. It's one thing to suspect that people fear and hate you. It is another entirely to know and feel it as we do. We're empaths, so it's difficult for others to understand who don't share that gift. Kibachet agreed and heaved a deep sigh. I don't know what to tell you, especially since you know my feelings on the matter. All I can do is be there, however I can. Issa sighed and looked over at the stoneware cup Kibachet held to her chest. Her soul sister was staring down into the water of forgetting with a frown. I guess I should drink that now, Issa whispered slowly. How much should I drink this time? Leith is tricky. You should probably take a little less than usual, Kibachet told her. Usually I see you drink about half the cup. In this case, you will need to remember enough to become fully aware after a time. Besides, total amnesia would be unfortunate. Right, Issa nodded. Some things I'd like to forget, but what I will probably forget is Hasset and everything that's happened here. You heard my lady, Kibachet told her sternly. Your paths will diverge for a time. As I told Hasset several millennia ago, you two will see each other again. Besides, when we hunt, you will have plenty to occupy you. All right, then, I'm ready, Issa said. She took the goblet and glared forlornly at the sparkling fluid inside. I will remember it all in time, she sighed. Then just enough for peace. It will be time to begin to know my duty when you come. Just maybe, perhaps someday, we can be happy after I've fulfilled my promise, Issa whispered, and tilted the goblet to her lips. She swallowed 7 times. Her eyes were sad as she handed the cup to Kibichet. Bast, Anubis, and others will help when it is time, sister. Have faith that all will be well. Kibichet hugged her fiercely. She wiped a tear as she stepped back. You won't remember what happened here, but don't forget to have some fun when you get back, okay? Kibichet grinned a little through her tears. Come, Anubis is almost finished talking to Haset. Anubis pulled Haset aside and led him through his temple to the observatory, where they could see the stars. Haset quietly spoke first. I will take the lead, Haset told Anubis resolutely. I want to forget all this mess and go on with my life. I'm young and have a lot of time ahead of me to move on. I want to go do things and see things. Anubis grinned, showing his teeth. Ah, yes, ever the wanderer you are. But you are correct in that you need to live your life without being buried in the horrors you have seen. You and Isa will need to choose your paths from here. You will need to decide how much Leith to drink before leaving, Anubis told Haset. For your service, it is not required. Consider, however, it will bring you some measure of peace. I don't want to forget everything, Haset replied, looking over his shoulder at the door where Isa had exited. He did not elaborate. Instead, Haset chose to keep his own counsel. Anubis knew his intent. The young man could be read again since he no longer held the Spear of Destiny. Anubis continued. If there is anything from your time here that you feel you must remember, hold it in your mind as you drink so that it is not washed away. Keep it close to you as you return through the veil. The memories that you wish to leave behind shall not return until you again cross to our side when you leave your mortal skin in death of the flesh. Water of forgetting, Haset murmured thoughtfully as he accepted the gray stone chalice from Anubis. I can drink a little and forget a little, or I can drink all of it and forget everything. He contemplated the cup he held. As with all things, it is a matter of free will, Anubis told his companion. Your strength of spirit will require more than a sip. If you drain the cup, you will have no memories from your time on this side of the veil, or past lives until you truly wish to remember. That is a lot of fluid. I'll probably have to take a piss, Haset grinned. Irreverent as always, Anubis said dryly. Haset tipped the cup to his lips and drank 12 swallows. About half of the water was gone when he handed the cup back to Anubis. That should do it, Anubis said. The ladies are returning. I will send you both back together. Skuld has arranged for Brian to meet you for a ride home, since you can't just pop out anywhere while you possess your mortal form still. You need to emerge from the Rainbow Bridge at a stable gate location. Isa can't carry him now, Haset observed. I hope we don't have to jump off a cliff again. Not in a manner of speaking, no. Although you might have to help her get down from your climb, Anubis told him with a slight grin. Where are you sending us? Haset asked Anubis. The humans currently call the place Ozone Falls, Anubis told him. The falls are full and will allow you to emerge in full sunlight about halfway down while the light is angled for the rainbow. Oh boy. Haset remembered the difficult rock faces at Ozone. I've climbed there recreationally, he told Anubis with concern. It's dangerous, and Isa won't be able to fly anymore. So how do we get her? Down? Anubis interrupted. It's no more dangerous than what you've already undertaken. Have a little more faith in her than that. I'll try to remember that when she's panicking, Hosset replied dryly. They heard the door open behind them and turned around. Hosset knew his concerns were well founded when he saw them walk in. Issa's eyes were an even blue-green again and looked somewhat glassy. Her hair was quickly lightening from blue-black to light reddish-brown and shortening. As he watched, she folded her increasingly transparent wings down into her aura, where she again hid them. If he hadn't known her nature, he would have thought her just an ordinary girl. Nice disguise, he muttered. What? She responded, slightly confused. Never mind. Hosset took her hand. Let's go. Anubis guided them out of the temple and to the gate at the edge of the garden. The tall figure again slid his talons between realms and pulled the veil aside, as if drawing a curtain away from a window. A different world revealed itself in the opening. Bright light assaulted their sight, and the sound of falling water roared in their ears from below. The rainbow sparkled with moving water droplets, brilliantly colored in warm and cool hues. Its transparent light ended on a damp, gray rock face. Holding hands, the two teens stepped out on the rainbow bridge as their other companions slowly faded away behind them. Here, take hold of this, and whatever you do, don't let go. With that instruction to Mary Lou, Kenneth placed her hands carefully on two solid rock outcroppings. He jumped for his own handhold when all sense of anything else solid vanished. Just as he'd predicted, Mary Lou began to realize just how far up she was. She had no rope and couldn't fly. The result of that realization was also just as bad as he'd thought it would be. Can? She managed to gasp. Her voice was higher than normal and ended with a choked squeak. How do we get down? I'm working on it. Now hush, Kenneth told her sternly. For starters, stay calm while I look at where we are. He made an effort not to swear. He settled for grinding his teeth. She was in a precarious position and would have to go sideways before she could go down. He was in a better position with more hand and footholds. You're gonna have to come to me, Kenneth told her. We have to go to the right about 50 to 80 feet. The climb will be easier from there down. How? She asked with a tremble in her voice. There was nothing but open air beneath her where she clung to the side of the cliff face. Mist from the waterfall filled the air and began soaking through her clothing. The rocks beneath her fingers were slick with moss and damp. Silver sparkles lingered behind her eyes every time she blinked. The Lethe still slithered through her thoughts, blurring her memories and perceptions. I'm scared. I'm stuck. And to make this worse, the Lethe is making me dizzy, Mary Lou complained. But at least my hair isn't falling in my face. She didn't remember putting on a barrette this morning, but the one in her hair seemed to be doing its job. Far below, she could see the rocks of the cliff face underneath them come up at an angle. If she tried to go straight down, she would fall because the cliff's rocks would simply be out from under her. It was impossible to go upward as the cliff face curved up and angled out way past their heads. She saw that to the right of them, Kenneth was correct. It would be the only way down without letting go and falling the last 50 feet to the rocks below. Eyeing it, Mary Lou realized the rock face, far to their right, straightened out enough to do a vertical climb down, if she could manage to move. Keep 3 points of contact at all times. Move slow. I can't do it for you. You have to do it yourself, Kenneth told her firmly. Look and feel as you go. Don't try anything fancy. You've had the strength training. You can do this. I can do this, Mary Lou repeated, and tried to slow her racing heart. She had no choice but to trust him once again. Carefully, she shifted her weight and let go with her right hand. She felt along the sharp edges of the damp rock for another handhold. Kenneth caught his breath and held it as he watched Mary Lou slowly shift position and shift again. There you go, he told her with a slight grin. His own nerves wouldn't help her at all. Now, just stay calm and follow me. Slowly they made their way across the rocks. They were part of the way across when Kenneth also experienced a wave of disorientation. He struggled to remember how he got where he was and shook his head to clear the cobwebs. Are you okay, Ken? Mary Lou asked with concern. The Leith is getting to me, too, Kenneth told her. We have to get down as quickly as possible, he muttered to himself. This is going to feel like one hell of a hangover tomorrow. Damp and dirty, the two teens inched down the rock face the last few feet to the bottom. Mary Lou could hear Brian's familiar voice as he hailed them from across the rushing water below Ozone Falls. When Mary Lou's feet eventually touched the broken slate-gray rocks at the bottom of the falls, she found that her trembling knees could no longer support her. A nearby flat rock became her savior as she collapsed from fatigue. She could feel the edge of an asthma attack threatening to close her throat and fought panic as she remembered she had no inhaler with her. She forced her shaking body into relaxation as she refused to hyperventilate and make it worse. To her relief, the pressure in her throat gradually eased, and she was able to enjoy the beauty of her surroundings. You okay over there, Mary Lou? Kenneth called to her as he looked up at Brian, waving at them from across the pool at the base of the falls. I just need to sit here for a few minutes and rest, she replied weakly. Kenneth nodded and stretched. He was relieved that they had both safely gotten down off the cliff. The pain in his forearms and neck drew his attention. He gingerly placed the fingertips of his right hand to his neck. He was puzzled when they came away bloody and with charred flakes of skin on them. What the? He frowned to himself, then shook his head. He looked up to see Brian picking his way over the rocks towards him. Hey, guys! Brian greeted them excitedly. What the heck happened to you, and where's the spear? It went the way of Mount St. Helens, Kenneth snarked, baring his teeth slightly. You look like hell, and you're bleeding, Brian said as he looked over them in concern. Well, man, that's what happens when you're dragged through it, Kenneth replied with a careless shrug. How's Mary Lou doing? Brian asked. Issa's fine, just tired from the climb, Kenneth said. Who's Issa? Brian asked in confusion. What? Kenneth asked him in return. Who are you talking about? Brian eyed his friend warily. Dude, I think I best check over for head traumas. You're not making sense. Nah, I'm fine. I probably just slipped climbing down the cliff, Kenneth told him. Brian looked up at the falls and the sheer cliff face beside it. Maybe next time y'all could think about using rappelling gear? Ropes would make that a lot easier. He saw blood oozing down Kenneth's neck and was puzzled. It came from wounds that didn't seem to be healing the same way every other injury had in the past few months. Between that and his friend's evident confusion, he was worried. He picked his way carefully over the jagged rocks to where Mary Lou was hunched over with her elbows on her knees. Brian squatted down to where he could meet her eyes. How about you? You okay? 2 weeks, going on 3, you've been gone. Your grandmother's been worried sick. Mary Lou just wrinkled her nose and sniffed at the mention of her family. I'm all right, she told him softly. What happened? Brian asked her quietly. She looked at him directly with a haunted expression. Brian's question brought on a wave of disorientation, and her memories were becoming more distant and confused, as if she had woken from a dream. She struggled with articulating the horrors of that dream and found that she couldn't. She settled for telling him the simplest version of the truth. We took care of it. It's done, she said. The spear of chaos is gone forever. Brian looked into her eyes a moment more and nodded. For now, he was satisfied. Let's get you guys back home then, he told her. I'll take you over to Scold's place to get you cleaned up and pick up Ken's car. There will be fewer questions that way. The drive over to the farm passed quietly, with Kenneth and Mary Lou disinclined to talk. Even Brian's typical exuberance wasn't enough to draw them into a conversation. Gravel crunched under the tires of Brian's car as he pulled into the driveway and came to a screeching halt. "Damn!" he exclaimed. "Where'd the barn go?" He continued past a pristine meadow where the barn had once stood. To his relief, the house was still there. Brian parked his car in front of the porch beside Ken's car. It wasn't disturbed. All three teens piled out of the vehicle. They knocked and the door opened of its own accord on squeaky hinges. Inside it was spooky, empty, and silent. Skull's house had the air of a place that was abandoned for years, though there was no dust. Lights turned on at a touch, and the water ran. The only soul around was the large red cat perched on the roof. Silently, the cat flicked his tail and watched them with luminous eyes. It didn't take long for Kenneth and Mary Lou to shower and change into clothes someone left for them. As they pulled away from Lady Fate's home for the final time, Kenneth looked behind them in the rear-view mirror and grinned to himself. One memory remained close as the rest faded despite the lethe. Kenneth saw himself and Bucephalus race over the field as one. The end. To be continued. Watch for Book 3 of the Annals of Aeturnum series. Daughter of Death. Exodus to Egypt. And there we go. Hope you guys all enjoyed the reading that we did of Spear of Destiny, Finding Bucephalus. As, through the course of it, we saw the Spear of Chaos was destroyed. The Spear of Destiny won. As always, if you guys missed any of the reading, it is available. All of the chapters are available on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius. Thank you all for coming along to spend some time with me and with the Spear of Destiny, Finding Bucephalus. I will be back again Tuesday, where I will be starting a book called The Blacksmith's Boy. We'll have more details and more information about that in my social media upcoming to Tuesday. A big thank you to Mary Lou Wells for providing me the permission to read this book for her. A big thank you to her for writing it, and for editor Kira Holiday for helping to make sure that it was as good as it could be. Once again, if you guys have enjoyed this, I would ask that you stop out and write yourself or write a review of this, because very useful for all authors to have reviews of their material. You can also stop out and get Book 1, Spear of Chaos, Legend of the Undead, available on Amazon, as is Spear of Destiny, Finding Bucephalus, both available on Amazon. Go pick them up. Support her, would you? As always, thank you to all of you. The greatest gift that you can give me as a streamer is the gift of your time, and I appreciate that you guys gave me the gift of yours this evening, whether it was for 5 minutes or for the full 2 hours. Make sure that if you have not already, get out there and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, youtube.com/@SirArminius. Search for Spear of Chaos or Spear of Destiny, and you'll probably find it. But youtube.com/@SirArminius. The more subscribers I have, the more I can spread these wonderful stories by our indie authors. I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your weekend ahead. Our recorded chapters from tonight will be available on the YouTube channel a little bit later this evening. Look for them tomorrow morning. Have yourselves a wonderful night, a wonderful weekend ahead, and I hope to see you guys all again really soon. Good night, everyone.